They say love doesn't see color or bank accounts, but when you're selling homemade candles on a street corner and a man in a thos. Before we dive in, if you believe in real love stories that break every rule, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever met someone who completely changed your world? Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Shayla, and 3 years ago I was invisible. You know the kind of invisible I'm talking about? The kind where people walk past you every single day, where you're part of the scenery, part of the noise of the city. I had a corner, 5th and Main, and that corner was my kingdom. Every morning at 6 o'clock, I'd set up my little table with my handmade candles. Lavender vanilla, cinnamon spice, honey amber. Each one poured by these hands in my tiny apartment while my daughter Grace slept in the next room. I was 28 years old, a single mother, and I was tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning, make candles until my back ached, get Grace ready for school, and then head to that corner. Rain or shine, hot or cold, I was there. Because rent doesn't care about the weather, the electric company doesn't take excuses, and my baby girl needed to eat. But I had dignity, I need you to understand that. I wasn't ashamed of what I did. Those candles were beautiful because I made them with love, with hope, with the dream that maybe one day I'd have my own boutique. Maybe one day I'd be more than the woman on the corner. I had regular customers. Mrs. Patterson, who worked at the post office. Tommy from the coffee shop down the street. They kept me going. They saw me. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. It was slow that day. I remember because I was worried about making enough to cover Grace's school supplies. And then this man walked up. White guy, expensive suit. The kind that probably cost more than my rent. He was on his phone, barely looking at me, and he pointed at a lavender vanilla candle. I wrapped it up, told him it was $15. He pulled out a $100 bill, handed it to me, and said, "Keep the change," without even making eye contact. I should have been grateful, right? But I wasn't. I was angry. Because I didn't need his pity. I didn't need him to feel good about himself by throwing money at the poor black woman on the corner. So I called after him, "Sir, your change." But he was already gone, disappeared into the crowd. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. He came back the next day. This time, he actually stopped, actually looked at me. He asked about the candles, how I made them, what was in them. His name was Christopher. I didn't trust him at first. Why would I? But he kept coming back. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, we'd talk. Small stuff at first, the weather, the city, then bigger stuff, dreams, life, struggles. He told me he worked in business. I told him about Grace, about my dream of owning a shop. He never made me feel small, never looked at me like I was less than. And slowly those walls I'd built up so high started to crack. He brought me coffee one morning, remembered exactly how I liked it. He asked me to dinner. I said no. My life was complicated enough without adding a man to it, especially one who seemed too good to be real. But then everything fell apart in the most unexpected way. One of my regular customers, this older lady who bought candles every month, she walked up while Christopher was there. And she just froze, stared at him like she'd seen a ghost. Then she practically shouted, "Oh my God, you're Christopher Bennett, the billionaire. I read about you in Forbes." I felt my stomach drop. Billionaire. I looked at him, and he had this expression on his face, guilt mixed with fear. And I knew. He'd been lying to me. Not about everything, maybe, but about who he was, about what he was. I told him to leave. Right there, in front of everyone, I told him I didn't need games. I didn't need some rich man playing pretend in my world. The look on his face almost broke me, but I held firm. He left. And I told myself I'd done the right thing. 2 weeks passed. Longest 2 weeks of my life. I won't lie to you, I missed him. I missed our conversations. I missed the way he looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been fooled, that maybe to him I was just some interesting story to tell at fancy dinner parties. Then one morning there was a package waiting at my corner. A box and a letter. The letter was handwritten, his handwriting. I recognized it from the notes he'd sometimes leave with his payments. He explained everything. How he didn't tell me because people change when they know he has money. How they stop being real. How I was the first person in years who treated him like a regular human being. How he'd fallen in love with me, with my strength, my spirit, my laugh. Inside the box was a business proposal, a real one with legal documents and everything. He wanted to invest in my candle business, not as charity, as partners. He'd provide capital and business connections. I'd provide the product and the vision. 50-50 split. Everything in writing. I sat on that corner and cried. Not sad tears. Confused tears. Hopeful tears. Scared tears. I showed up at his office building 3 days later. I'd never felt more out of place in my life. The lobby alone probably cost more than my entire apartment complex. But I walked in there with my head high, asked for Christopher Bennett, and waited. When he came down, he looked surprised. Nervous. We went to a conference room and I laid it out straight. I told him if we were going to do this, business or anything else, it had to be real. Equal partners. No handouts, no power plays. He agreed to everything, every single term I set. Then he asked me to dinner again, and this time my heart made the decision before my head could object. I said yes. Our first date was a disaster in the best way. He tried to take me to this super fancy restaurant, and I felt so uncomfortable I could barely breathe. So we left and ended up at a diner sharing burgers and fries and laughing until my stomach hurt. That's when I knew. This was real. Meeting Grace was the real test, though. He showed up at my apartment on a Saturday with a stack of children's books and this terrified expression on his face. Grace, my beautiful, smart 6-year-old, looked him up and down and asked, "Are you my mama's boyfriend?" He stammered. I laughed. But by the end of that day, she was showing him her drawings and making him promise to read her a bedtime story. He was awkward, sure, but he was genuine. And Grace, she's got good instincts. She loved him. The business started taking off faster than I'd dreamed. We found a space, set up production, hired people. I was making candles on a scale I'd never imagined. But it wasn't all smooth. His world, the business world, the wealthy world, it wasn't kind to us. There was this woman, Nicole, one of his colleagues. The things she said about me, about us, they were vicious. Called me a gold digger. Made jokes about how he was slumming it. Said I was just using him for his money. Christopher cut her off completely. Professionally and personally. But her words still stung. And it wasn't just her. There were others. People who looked at us and couldn't understand. People who made assumptions based on the colour of my skin and the size of his bank account. My own mother warned me. Rich white men don't marry black women from the streets, baby. Don't get your hopes up. Her words hurt worse than anything Nicole could say. We had our first real fight about a month into the business. He made a decision without consulting me, thought he was helping. But it felt like control, like he thought his money meant his opinion mattered more. I almost walked away from everything, the business, him, all of it. But he surprised me. He stepped back, apologized, let me lead, proved that his words about being equal partners weren't just words. 6 months after we opened our first store, we had 3 locations and an online shop that was shipping candles across the country. I was on magazine covers. From street corner to success. They loved the story. But with success came more attention. And more cruelty. There was one article that went viral. I won't repeat what it said, but it tore apart our relationship, questioned my worth, made ugly assumptions about both of us based on nothing but race and class. I read the comments, thousands of them. So much hate, so much ugliness. I broke down that night, completely fell apart in a way I hadn't since Grace's father left. Christopher found me in the bathroom crying so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't say it would be okay. He didn't tell me to ignore it. He just held me. And then he said the words that changed everything. I love you. Not your story. Not your struggle. Not what you represent or what we look like together. I love you. Just you. The woman who makes candles that smell like hope. The mother who would do anything for her daughter. The fighter who never gives up. You. Just you. I finally let him in completely that night. Let go of every fear, every doubt, every wall I'd built to protect myself. 6 months later, he took me back to that corner, 5th and Main, my old kingdom. He'd been quiet all day, nervous in a way I'd never seen him. When we got there, he turned to me with tears in his eyes and got down on one knee right there on the sidewalk. Shayla, he said, you taught me what it means to be real, to be brave, to fight for what matters. Will you build a life with me? Will you marry me? I said yes before he even finished the question. Our wedding wasn't in some grand ballroom. It was small, intimate, just our families and closest friends. Grace was my flower girl, walking down the aisle with the biggest smile on her face. My mother cried happy tears. His parents, who I'd been terrified to meet, welcomed me with open arms. Today, our candle business has stores in 12 cities. But you know what? I still make candles myself sometimes. Still pour them by hand in our home, teaching Grace the craft, keeping connected to where it all started. People still say we're unusual, that we don't make sense on paper. They're right. We don't. A black woman from the streets and a white billionaire. On paper, we're a headline, a controversy, a debate. But in real life, we're just two people who found each other in the most unexpected place, who chose love over fear, who built something real together. This isn't a fairy tale. It's messy and complicated and sometimes really hard. We still face judgment. We still have to fight against assumptions and prejudices. But we do it together, as equals, as partners, as people who see each other for exactly who we are. So that's my story. From a street corner to a love I never saw coming. They still say we're unusual, that we don't make sense on paper. But love never did make sense on paper, did it? If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken for love? And remember, your worth isn't determined by your bank account or your zip code. You are valuable exactly as you are. Subscribe for more real stories about real love. I'll see you in the next one. This is Shayla, reminding you, never let anyone make you feel small.